coaches. We're going to be talking about everything and anything to do with Canadian university football. So we're going to jump right into it. McMaster had a bunch of different coaching changes this year, especially. They just recently fired Greg Knox, as you know, Maddie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I guess Greg Knox got in a bit of an altercation on the sideline during one of the games. Not quite sure what was said. Resulted in a suspension. Then eventually he was let go by McMaster. Really caused a lot of stir up here at McMaster. Kind of want to know your thoughts on that, Tom.
Yeah, I think obviously with this last kind of altercation, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what I've been hearing a lot around the campus. I think a lot of the other different faculty had an issue with him. It's something here and there kind of thing. Certainly the altercation, while warranted the suspension, I don't know that on its own would have warranted a firing. So that's why my thought is there must have been something else that was going on to warrant that or to justify that kind of thing. But you were on defense with him as well for a couple of years, right?
Oh, yeah, I was there for 2 years.
So what did you think about him when he was a D coordinator?
Honestly, I thought he was hilarious. Very dry sense of humor. I could totally see him rubbing people the wrong way for sure, because he wasn't the type of guy who would, if you weren't doing something right, he would just tell you. And he had, like I said, he had a very dry sense of humor. He was hilarious, though. Honestly, the guy was a winner. His plays were the most complicated things I've ever seen. I think physics was less complicated than his defense, to be 100% honest. Spent a lot of time in the film room with him. I know a lot of guys were kind of upset to be there for hours, but every year he was there, we went to the Vanier Cup. So the guy, obviously, from a coaching perspective, and access to know perspective, knew what he was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really odd, too, because my last year in 2016, I got a chance to be under him when he was the interim head coach. And it really seemed that I guess he felt like he needed a stronger kind of presence in the locker room kind of thing, because he would call guys out, or he would call certain positions out, like say, like, the O-line wasn't working hard enough or the D-line slacking off and things. And I felt like he kind of targeted people and almost not demeaned them, but like tried to focus on them for something to motivate them and the rest of the team. And I don't know that got over the best. But like you said, when he was a defensive coordinator, I obviously was on offense, didn't get a big chance to, work with him. But whenever I did, he was always that same kind of dry humor, but like genius, spoke with you with respect. But, when you messed up, he'd let you know about it. So it was very surprising to see him do so poorly, because I know there was a bunch of even some of the former players that had issue with him as well. But like you said, if you're not accustomed to that kind of dry sense of humor and how he can speak, it can really rub people the wrong way. But obviously his replacement, Stefan Potasic, he's back again after a coaching carousel. He was started off with the Ticats and then went to UBC for a year and is now back here. Seems to be a really positive impact on the campus already. What are your thoughts, Maddie?
Honestly, I think Stefan Potasic right now is probably the perfect hire for this program. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I feel like he's kind of the fire extinguisher to the fire right now. And I feel like he already has a lot of good connections with people in the university. So I feel like people are going to welcome back with open arms. I don't think, like when I was there, no one ever really talked bad about Stefan Potasic. He was just like a really nice guy. Like you couldn't really say anything bad about him. So honestly, this is, I think, the perfect hire. I mean, they already know what they're getting with him. I don't know if there's anyone better out there you could bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. With like I said, with a lot of the rumors and things that we heard before about Knox, going against a lot of the faculty, not going against them, but rubbing them the wrong way, certainly. Bringing in somebody like Coach P is now, you no longer have to start from a negative point where it's like the football team is like this way. He's already got this great relationships with everybody he's worked with before, so he's already in the positives. Mac is already happy to have him back, and I think that's just a huge win.
Absolutely. And honestly, one thing I'll say about Stefan Potasic, so I remember when I was getting recruited, I go to other schools and do the visit. Stefan Potasic was the only coach that sat me down and said, okay, we're going to talk academics. We're going to figure out what program you're going to take. And it was actually really good for me. That's kind of the reason why I decided to go to Max. I know, I'm going to have a good support system. I'm going to have good academics. I went to other schools and, talk football and be great. And they'd tell me what the program's plan was. And I would get in the car, be driving home with my parents. And they go, so what do you think of the school? I'm like, yeah, the football team seems great. Everything seems great. But I don't know program. What am I going to take?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he really stressed that academics part, and it really showed through. But especially with anything else, I've heard some other stories from other recruits or some of my other friends who went to other schools and things, and even called other coaches and just said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, like, I'm not going to be going to your university this year, going to go to somewhere else. And they've been like almost childish about it, like, oh yeah, good luck with that, and like hanging up the phone. Like, this is like an 18-year-old kid who wants to go to a university. You're like a 45-year-old man. Why don't you just calm down? Do you know what I mean? But Coach P never was like that.
I don't actually, because I wasn't that highly recruited. So when I did go to Mac, all the other schools like, good riddance. We want this guy anyways.
All right. Well, I can't help you there. But even you even had let's say a kind of negative experience for certainly at Mac, switching because you started off as a D lineman, you went over to an O lineman as well. So in your opinion, do you think that was handled very well or no?
What do you mean by that?
Like, were you given ample amount of time to make the transition? Did you feel like they put you in the best possible scenario to win?
You know what? Honestly, when I was there, I really felt sorry for myself and thought, it's everyone else's fault but mine. I had a really negative attitude about that. But to be honest, like, I kind of felt when I got switched to O-line, it happened a little bit too soon. I had the proper time to prepare, but at the same time, it's kind of my own fault. I should have been better on the defensive line. I've touched you about it before. So when I was coming out of school and I was a recruit, I was kind of going, I'll play anywhere. I'll play, defensive tackle, I'll play defensive end, I'll play offensive line. Because of that, I really never got good at one specific position. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I honestly believe I don't have the body type to play offensive line because I have really terrible knees. Mm-hmm. If I was smarter, I would have focused on my speed and then would have been a defensive end and I wouldn't have ever gotten that position. I don't think I put a lot of blame on myself, basically. I don't think I think the coaches were trying to make the roster fit. I think they had some good defensive ends they were recruiting that year, and they kind of said, we need to make the roster fit. So, their jobs are on the line as well. So I can't really knock anyone that happened. And to be honest with you, everything I learned on that football team has helped me in the work world. Mm-hmm. So honestly, yeah, at the time it was a very negative experience, but looking back at it now, I'm very glad I went to Mac. I'm very glad I went through all that.
Yeah, I'm personally very glad you moved over to the O-line because it was jokes in those meeting rooms, man.
That was my favorite year, to be honest.
Oh yeah, when you hit that point where you just don't care anymore and you're just sitting in the meeting room like, yeah, sure, whatever, man. That was the best, the absolute best.
Yeah, I remember me on the scout team. That was yeah, I want to get into that.
But yeah, along with that, Stefan Potasic, he's also got two new coordinators or coaches, you could say. One of them is Corey Grant. He was the receivers coach over at the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
OP.
Yeah. He helped out a lot with McMaster as well. I'm not sure if he was there when you were there.
No, he wasn't.
But he was. I remember him being there at a training camp or two. And then also Todd Galloway, who was the former interim head coach at Guelph last year, brought over to be a recruiting coordinator as well. I think these are pretty good hires. Obviously, Corey Grant from your high school days. So what do you think of him as a coach?
Honestly, I think he's a great guy. I remember, he went to Orchard Park. So he was kind of like the famous, that's my high school, Orchard Park, by the way. In case anyone knows, it's a real school. He was kind of like everyone at Orchard Park knew him because he was the only real good athlete really that ever came out of Orchard Park. And besides him and Taylor Black, who was on the basketball team here for a bit.
Right.
Honestly, my first encounter with him was at McMaster's high school camp they had in the summer. Mm-hmm. I remember I had the blue OP helmet. I'm walking off the field and he looks at me and he's like, I know I saw an OP guy walking off the field, and I kind of laughed. I'm like, oh, he's serious. I just ripped it off, and I'm like, yeah. So he's got the discipline aspect, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But did you ever have the experience with him as for a proper coach?
I had his brother, to be honest.
Okay.
His brother would help out more. I know he helped out with the Halton Cowboys,
right?
Yeah, which is the OVFL team off. They're even a thing anymore.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think the Stamps kind of took over there.
Yeah.
But his brother was there quite a bit, and he was very vocal and kind of crazy, to be honest. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so the other person that they brought on is also Todd Galloway. He was the interim head coach, like we said, but he was also the offense coordinator. He was the OC there for I think about 6 or 7 years, including when they won in 2015 the Yates Cup and they beat Western in Western. I'm not sure. Like when I think of Guelph football, especially when you and I played, I don't think high-powered offense. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
And that's not a knock against him whatsoever. He may be more methodical, but they had great guys like I'm specifically thinking of Rob Farquharson, who was the running back for them. That guy was a nail gun. I don't know what it is, but like seeing a running back there with like nothing on his arms, no gloves, no tape, no nothing. It was just like, this guy's an animal.
Yeah, he was an animal. Honestly, the thing I remember about Guelph the most when I was there is all the different jerseys. It was insane. I remember the first game we played them, I'm like, I thought we were playing Guelph, and I thought it was Waterloo at first.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and had just so many jerseys, and they had the swag going over there, that's just for sure. They were like the Oregon of the CIS at one point.
And like, obviously, if you're on the outside looking in there, you're like, oh, screw these guys. They've got all these jerseys and things like that, whatever. But no matter what, that is helping the league. You know, because being an Oregon, like Oregon is the exact same kind of thing in the States where they constantly have new jerseys out every game and all that. And kids are drawn to, you know, having the swag and having brand new stuff every single day. So if more kids are going to come to your school because of that, it's a recruiting ploy. I think that's a great thing. But if, like, it's once again the OUA's coming in and they're saying, well, you're only allowed now 3 different jersey types, which was literally nicknamed the Guelph rule because of that. And it's like, it's once again, it's pandering to the idea that other teams don't have the money to have so many jersey types, so we're going to restrict everybody else so that it's a fair playing field, instead of like trying to promote the idea of, okay, these guys have this advantage, you have like the advantage of your history of doing things, this is your advantage, like building that up instead of taking things down. Do you know what I mean?
I 100% agree with that, because I don't feel like they were doing anything wrong by having a lot of jerseys. Like I felt like it was just like they were willing to put the effort and money into the team. Good for them. I remember even like you said, that was a great recruiting ploy, because I remember the year before I went, they were 2-6. They were kind of a bit of a laughing stock. And I remember, so I was from the Golden Horseshoe area. Like I played in Hamilton, Niagara, and Burlington. And I remember seeing their recruiting class that year, and I was like, wow, they literally got every like good player I know.
Yeah.
Like they're going to be pretty good. And I remember, and like a lot of people went because like, oh, you know, the swag, the jerseys, right? Like, you know, we want to look good, you know, look good, feel good, play good. I think they were, 6-2, 7-1 that year. We ended up actually playing them in the Yates Cup. Yeah. We won, by the way, but yeah, we played them in the Yates Cup.
Yeah, but like, once again, it's the same kind of thing. It's brought another group of kids out to this, to their team, whatever. I remember in my year, it was in 2011, I went out to a recruiting trip. I went to Guelph, and I went with Daniel McDonald, who we played with, who was an all-star long snapper. Like, realistically, if he didn't have so many injuries, he probably could have gone down to the States for that.
He was in the CFL.
Yeah, he was. And then the other guy that I was with was John Rush. John Rush happened to be like one of the best linebackers that they ever had at Guelph. They moved him all around and things, but that was like a taste of their recruiting class. Both those guys went to Guelph, and then they had one of the best recruiting classes in 2011 and 2012, and then they go to a Yates Cup in 2012, and then 2014 as well, and then they win it in 2015. So those kids were directly affected by all of the swag and everything that Stu Lang brought in, which positively affected the program and is only going to do more great things. Like, it's the idea of like Laval. Laval has a bunch of different jerseys. They don't have quite so many as Guelph did by any means, but they have so much money from all of their boosters and things, and nobody is like restricting them by any means. This is the standard. If you want to get out of this conference, you need to beat this team. This is what the standard is. And then you challenge everybody else to try to meet that, instead of saying, hey, Laval, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, to try to give it a fair game, because then that almost diminishes our game, and we're already having struggles of getting people out to games and things like that. So I think whatever you can do to promote things is definitely the way you need to go.
100%. And I obviously don't want to compare the OUA to Quebec, because the rules are a little different. I think they could have guys that are like 30 playing football. It's insane. I remember I got hurt my first year, and everyone went up to Laval for a preseason game, and I was like bummed I didn't get to go. And then everyone came back, and they're like, yeah, we just got thrown around. Like, they were like just old guys, man. Like, I think they had that CJEP there.
Yeah.
So coming out of high school, they get 2 years of junior college. So by the time they're actually playing university, they're like really their third year, but they're in their first year of eligibility. Yeah. So it's just like a huge age problem. It's just terrible.
Well, so to try to combat that, I know that the CIS put out a rule saying you have to complete your 5 years of eligibility within 7 years of graduating high school, and they don't count CJEP as high school. So it's technically they have until they were grade 11 to use up their 5 years within 7. So before, I know there was a bunch of guys when we played Laval in 2011 that were like. They did 4 years at CJEP and then went into the university itself and played for another 5 years. So the quarterback that we ended up playing was like 29 years old or something. He had like a wife and a kid, and was like, how can that be possible? It was nuts. So they put in this rule, and then try to make it like fairer, I guess you could say. But still, you and I both know, to those of you who don't know, the aspect of playing against somebody when you're 18 and that person is 21 or 20, to have 2 extra years of working out and being on a professional style team, like even CJEP is closer to university level than it is to the high school level. So they're getting better coaches, better everything. And then moving on to university, that's like an automatic positive bump that you get from there. But it's also like, I'm very surprised that more people don't go out there and recruit. You know what I mean? I understand it's very like French speaking, but like if you can bring those people over there, and it's the same thing with the guys in the CJFL as well. You know, if you've got older people who are playing at a higher level, why don't you just go out there and recruit them? Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It just seems to make sense to me, but I don't know. That's just me. And there's been a lot of times where I've thought that this is something that is so blatantly obvious that every team should be doing, but that's why we're the recliner coaches.
Exactly. That's why we don't actually have real jobs in coaching. We're just chilling on the couch thinking we know it all.
Yeah.
And if you ever handed me that clipboard, I'd be like, ask Mad.
Oh man, when I was playing in high school, we had an offensive line coach who then turned out to be the offensive coordinator as well. And to give you his credentials, he had an illustrious playing career at U of T. He was a part of the group of people that went for the first time ever to go 0-48, I think it is. They didn't win a single game.
That's incredible.
And so to commemorate that, every single person on the team got tattoos.
That's awesome.
Commemorating the fact that you were the worst team, the worst recruiting class ever.
I put that on my resume. I think that would stand out. People like, whoa, that's insane. That's almost an accomplishment itself.
Oh my God. But he was our coach. He was our offensive coordinator kind of thing. And one night, me and one of my buddies who happened to be the quarterback were playing Madden, and we go, I think I recognize this play. And we pull out our playbooks, and it is play for play, frickin' Madden, going all the way down for our passing routes and everything.
How did that work, though? Because in the States, it's 11 guys on the field.
So he just drew in an extra person. So there was always one guy who was like an outlet receiver. So there'd be like, you'd have like a clear route, an out route, or an in route, and then there's one guy who's just doing like a quick hook or a quick drag in case anything else isn't there.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a rookie mistake. I think, actually, you know why I knew that? Because I remember my dad, when I was in house league, he was actually looking at Madden, using a coach, us like 10-year-olds. And he's like, this is incredible, right? These plays, oh, it's 11 guys. He just like threw it away. He's like, well, all right. And then,
yeah, like you can't motion, you can't do anything. Like it's a completely different game, especially with the fields being so much wider and things. You can't be doing that.
Oh, way easier on the O-line. Let me tell you, when I was in training camp McMaster, I had Greg Knox sorting his defense. So I'm like, what is going on? I honestly think I had a better chance of figuring out every number in pi than I did Greg Knox's defense. I remember actually I talked to Mike McDonald at University of Guelph, and I was telling him, like, yeah, like in training camp, I was just, so confused, messing up everything because that defense is just insane. He's like, you think you were confused? We were up all night trying to figure out how to beat that defense. I'm like, it was insane.
Yeah, I even remember I went up to Ben D'Aguilar, who you know, but for everyone who doesn't know, he was a CIS All-Canadian. He won the lineman of the year for all of Canada. He set a brand new sack record, which I think actually our boy Mike Kashik might have broken.
Yeah, Mikey, our old roommate.
Attaboy Cash, man. But so everything, like he is obviously an all-star and all this stuff. And I asked him, hey, what is gator bean? And he goes, I know what I have to do. but I could not tell you if he had a gun pointed to my head what the defense does. That's it. And every single guy, it seemed, was like that. Obviously, probably like your Mike Daly's or your safeties who need to know more probably would know more of the defense and more of the scheme. But for the most part, it's like, just know what you have to do because nobody has everything in their head except for Knox.
Yeah. Oh, and Nick Shorthill, he was a linebacker from the Ticats. Now that guy, like, he just knew everything that was going on in the field. I remember he would just pretty much line everyone up sometimes. It was insane.
Yeah, I recently found a link on YouTube of our 2014 game against Western when we went down to Western and beat them by like a 3 or 4 points kind of thing. And there's a lot of times where you see Shorty and he's out and he's like pointing at guys at different places and things like that. And then also just all around the field, just killing Will Finch. That kid got sacked, I think, 6 times in that game and was just hurting afterwards. Like, it was to the point where you're in the fourth quarter and it's like a close game, but when you're watching it, you're like, my God, just give the kid a break. Like, it was bad, man.
I remember I was scared when I'd go in there and Shorhill was in. I'm like, oh, if I go the wrong gap, this guy's going to chew me out.
Oh,
I'm more scared of him than Knox.
Yeah, there's a reason he got nicknamed the Bully.
Yeah.
Still one of my favorite stories. One of our other good friends, Nick Furlett,
Yes.
he was a right tackle for us. He actually started in 2014. He was a 3 or 4 year starter.
Yes.
So he was very, very good. But in 2013, his first ever training camp, we had a defensive coordinator by the name of Kevin Iben, legendary Ibo.
Yep.
And he introduced the idea of an anchor. Do you remember that, Matty?
That was when the linebacker just nails the tackle, right?
Yeah, it sure is. And the first ever time we get a chance to see anchor at full speed, Nick Shorthill, who is one of the strongest guys on the team, comes in and does the anchor play to a first-year offensive lineman who is not suspecting it. And I saw Nick's feet replace where his head was within a matter of seconds. Like, he was just decleated, went right into the O-line. We all did like a domino effect. And then I think it was either Mark Mackey, who was a defensive end, or Mike Kashik, just kind of looked around and like walked into the backfield because everybody else was just gone. And then the rule came out that was, you know what? Maybe don't do that against your own players.
Yeah.
That would be great. But yeah, so that's just a small sample of Shorthill.
Yeah, he's an animal for sure. Still in the Ticats, I think, right?
Yeah, he's still at the Ticats. I think he might have. I believe he had an injury, and he might have. He's had surgery and things. He's coming back this year. But the dude was already like making plays and contributing pretty seriously to the Cats, and this was his 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah, I think so. He started with Montreal.
Yeah,
and he got moved over. There,
But still, like, that's great. And even our boy Mike Daly, who's current starting safety for the Ticats, he's just signed an extension with them as well. So the boys are doing well.
Yeah, it's so cool seeing like guys used to play with, and even just Canadians in general in the CFL. That's why I kind of wanted to get into that new football league. Down there. It's the AAU or the AAF.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think about that?
I'm personally I'm a huge fan of it just because it's more football during the one part of the year where there wasn't supposed to be any more football, and I'm always down to watch some more. But I love the rule changes that they've had so far. There's no kickoffs. If you go for an onside kick, you were telling me you have to do it like a 4th and 10.
Yeah,
like that's great additions in my opinion. And I think they've got a lot of free reign. They can do whatever they want to do that the NFL would be limited by. So that idea is just fantastic to me, really. So I'm a big fan of it. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I love it because I think now a lot of Americans down there are going to just play in that league that aren't making the NFL instead of come to Canada. I don't have like a problem with Americans come to Canada. I just think it's way better when we have Canadian athletes playing the CFL. Like, it'd be great to see a Canadian quarterback start a whole year. I think Andrew Buckley was the closest to actually starting recently. I remember even when we were at Mac, Kyle Quinlan, absolute stud. Never got a shot in the CFL, and I'm like, I don't know like the whole story behind what happened, but I was like, you're telling me that guy wasn't good enough to play in the CFL? And then you have guys like Ricky Ray who are legends. I always think, where are these quarterbacks come from in the States? Like, I just looked up Ricky Ray. He went to Sacramento State.
Yeah.
What division's that in?
It's got to be Division 4 or 5
yeah,
or something.
I don't even know. Like, where are these guys coming from? Like, how do you know who's a good, like, prospect from America coming up? Like, I don't understand. I remember even, too, when I was looking at some of the draft prospects, besides the CIS guys, there'd be guys in the States on there, like, from certain schools I haven't heard of down there, and I'm like, okay, so these are Canadians that are in the NCAA, right? Mm-hmm. No, some of them are just, like, full American. I'm like, so did they just realize I'm not going to make the NFL and I'm going for the CFL. Like
Yeah.
I found that part really confusing.
Yeah, and it's really strange because it seems like there is definitely more of a pull to make sure that you get like the best of the tier 2 or 3 American players to come up to and be a part of the CFL. Whereas it's like the whole reason that I watched the Grey Cup because I am a fan of the CFL, but I was really pulling for the Stampeders this year because our friend Kachik plays on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to see Kachik get a ring. You know what I mean? And obviously he did, and we went Bucky. But like to see that, or even like I was appreciating before he got there, watching Derek Wiggins, who used to be at Queens. I used to play against him and see him like make the transition from being a defensive end to a defensive tackle, and seeing him like progress and do well. Eric Mezzalira now, who's out at Calgary as well, he's been killing it and doing really well on special teams and things. And watching him, that's been, you know what I mean? Like if you see your buddies, you see people that you kind of know, it's just going to make the game better.
You know what's crazy too, actually, about Derek Wiggins? So the other day, I was in my room and I saw this picture I had when I went to this football camp. I think it was like grade 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. And I saw on there Derek Wiggin, and then our boy Etre Latanzio, or our buddy Tyler Goldsworthy's boy, was in that picture. I'm like, wow, I was literally in a picture with like guys in the CFL.
Yeah.
This is crazy. What happened to me?
Yeah, I think if you still say Latanzio's name, Goldsworthy just starts sweating.
Yeah, that guy was an animal. I've never seen like a nose tackle that athletic.
To this day, he is the absolute, hands down, bar none, the best player I've ever played against.
Really, eh?
He just, the speed, the strength, and his reaction time were unlike anything that I've ever seen before. You could see guys, like we'd be watching film and we'd be saying, he's going offside. But when you do like super slow-mo, as soon as the tip of the ball is moving, he's moving. And so like, if you're not anticipating the snap count and like moving on the H of hut, he's already beaten you. It was crazy. And even the first time where we went to play against Ottawa in 2014, we had one of our younger guys at the time, Dan Unin. He went in for Zach to just take him out and make sure that he got some rest. And I watched this man, Ettore Latanzio, by the way, to be a nose tackle. Typically you want them to be like 6'5", maybe like 340 kind of thing. You're really like hunkering things down. This guy was maybe like 6 foot, I think like 260.
I'd say less. I think it was like 240.
Yeah, I think that's being generous. And he took Dan Union, who was at the time around probably 340, and tossed him over top of his shoulder, threw him to the ground, and then went and chased down a quarterback. And I remember getting Dan up and him looking at us and being like, I've never had somebody throw me. I got thrown. I don't know what technique to use to not let that happen. And it was the craziest thing in the world. And he was constantly doing that. And the worst part about it was going up to the line, and you're making your calls, you're calling out the defense and things like that. And then you hear something and you look down and Latanzio is on a knee staring up at you singing, "I'm a Little Teapot." It was the scariest thing that I've ever seen, because it's like that little kid, that little child doll in the horror movies where you're like, that thing's going to be the one that kills everybody. And he was just staring at us like that. Like Goldsworthy and I were, oh my God, we were so scared. And he backed it up, obviously. He led the league in sacks that year as a nose tackle. That's gross. He got double teamed every single play.
Yeah, watching him split the double teams, I was like, how is he doing this with like half his size? I remember poor Marshall Ferguson. I felt bad for him back then. I remember we had to play, I think we played Ottawa the last game of the season that year, and they beat us to get it, and then I think, so we had a bye, and then Ottawa won their quarterfinal game. They had to play him again. I remember you guys were like, oh man, we got to deal with this guy again.
I think they were playing against Laurier or something, and I've never been more of a Laurier fan in my life. And Goldsworthy showed up in all purple and gold, and he was just praying that he didn't have to deal with him. But the whole issue with that was in 2013, this guy Goldsworthy who we're talking about was our starting center on the O-line. He was a huge beauty, like great guy. But in 2013, what we normally would do is if you have just a nose tackle in front of you and the guys who are next to him don't have anybody over top of them, they like pop out to make sure that nobody else from any other position is going to crash in or do anything like that. So Goldsworthy, for like 90% of the game, is left one-on-one with the best defensive player in the country, and he had his lunch stolen that year. And ever since then, he's been having nightmares. But then we started double teaming him, and it was fine. But ever since that year, he's always been like a bead of sweat it comes down anytime you say even Ottawa.
I know we gotta wrap this up here, time. But I remember when we played that guy. That was the very first time I remember prepping for a game, and we changed our whole scheme to block him. It was insane. We changed everything.
The first and only time I've ever been a part of McMaster where we changed an entire blocking scenario, because we were always very confident in whatever we were doing that we could do whatever we needed to. But that was crazy. But like Maddie said, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in. I think this was a pretty successful first show.
Yeah, we did okay.
Don't want to like pat myself on the back too much, but I will, because it's my damn show. But thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. We will be back once again next week, same time, same place. There's also going to be a podcast up, so if you missed this show, we'll be able to download it. We'll have links on our social media pages. I'm at TC Sterling.
I'm at MJax56.
And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and we'll look forward to having you guys next week.